welcome to my video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about me completely left Fedora and went back on Arch. And now, before anybody saying like, I thought you were not going to ditch your hop. Well, that's the point. I was thinking like, if I'm going to stick with one system, what Linux system do I want to be on? And I know I really do like Fedora. I think Fedora is a great distribution, okay? Don't get me wrong. There's nothing against Fedora. Nothing against like Gentoo and a lot of other distributions. And I know I said I'm going to stay on this distribution, that distribution. I do this a lot. I'm a typical Linux user. This is what we all do. Maybe they don't act the way I do, but hey, I'm a typical Linux user that does things my own way, and everybody does their own thing their own way. But we all kind of like have bad habits with Linux, like when it comes to distro hopping and using Linux for their particular needs, right? So I think like if I'm gonna use one system and I don't want to distro hop anymore, what system would it be? I'm like, of course it's gonna be Arch Linux. Okay, I like Arch Linux. And I know like the colors look kind of weird compared to Fedora. I don't know why it's doing it's supposed to be a black background, but it's showing it like this is probably a normal color, but the matrix looks really weird. And this like I don't know, it didn't look like that on Fedora though. I'm not sure why it does that. To be honest, I'll just close that and. So, yeah, this is basically the same system that I had, like the same system that I set up on Fedora. Like I basically just took my backup and the only difference is with this Butterfest, I set it up with time shift instead of snapper, and I don't have any auto snap whatever. Like I just create my own snapshot when I feel like it. You know what I mean? Like. Oops, I didn't want to do that. That's the wrong program. I want to go into here. I didn't create a snapshot, so I'm going to do it right now. So what I was thinking is I'm just going to do my own snapshot manually, and I'm going to do it like, I'm going to create a snapshot like once a week, and then after a month, I'm just going to delete all the snapshots that I've done that month and just delete them. And then create a new one of the beginning of the month and just do one every week and do it like that. So like if a system fails during that week, at least like it's a week, right? Like I'm not gonna drastically change things with my system in a week, and I don't really. And if I do really change something like majorly, I'll just create another snapshot and delete the one that I done previous that week. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna maintain it myself instead of getting all these auto snap programs and all that. I'm just gonna do it myself. Like I'll just create a snapshot when I think I need one, and basically just roll back when I need to roll back, because I don't like to have all these snapshots. I don't really do like having all the snapshots. But yes, it's working really good. My system. I'm really happy with Arch Linux. And I do use Arch Linux anyways. My Steam Deck is based on Arch Linux. SteamOS is Arch Linux system. So I was thinking like I might as well just use all my computers. The reason why I went off Arch Linux because I was worried about the XZ backdoor. And it's been about a month now. Can you believe it? It's been about a month since this backdoor incident. I was a little bit worried about it because Arch was still like using. It still does use XZ. So like it still does. I think it's XZ dash. It still does use like 5.61, and people might think, oh, you're using the one that's vulnerable, you know, and it's not. And the reason why it's not vulnerable is because the reason why it's not vulnerable is because it's I'm just the reason why it's not vulnerable is because pretty much I lost train of thought here. The reason why it's not vulnerable is because they don't patch open SSH like how Debian and Fedora does, and the reason why the vulnerable, like it was vulnerable for OpenSSH, is because of how they patch it with systemd on it, and systemd requires this lib lzmaf lib and .so, and somehow like when you load up OpenSSH, it kind of like links these these libs, and that's in there, and that lib file lib lzma is with the xz program, which systemd requires, and the way they patched it for OpenSSH, it's all linked together, and that's how the backdoor works together on Debian and not Arch Linux, but Debian and Fedora. And it, like the backdoor is like it was targeting these two distributions because the way that it was set up, it was wasn't targeting Arch Linux at all. The reason why they say Arch Linux was vulnerable is because of the version of the XZ and its roll and release system. So that's why they just kind of said that. But the way Arch Linux does their stuff, they don't patch like that, and they do their own thing. And anyways, whatever, it's patched, and it's I was kind of worried about it because like I still saw like they didn't went back down to the previous version. They basically it's fixed, it's sorted out basically. So that was the reason why I left Arch Linux and I went on Windows. I just want to get off Linux in general because I didn't know what was going on with this backdoor. I was just like, whoa, I was kind of freaking out. I think we all were pretty much. And yeah, you're not safe on Windows either. I know that, but it wasn't Linux, so I just got off. I wanted to get off Linux. I could have just, and I can't put Mac OS on it because they're PCs. So what other operating system do I have to put on besides Linux? Windows. So that's why. I mean, I do have a Mac computer, but I have also PCs, which you can't run Mac OS on it. The reason why I say Mac OS over Windows because it does have BSD, not like BSD, and Windows don't have any like Unix for their userland. So, I mean, you can emulate. They have a subsystem for Linux, but yeah, it's not the same though. But it is pretty good though. I mean, I kept Windows though. Actually, I could have kept Fedora and had Fedora and Arch Linux, but I don't really want to have two Linux distributions because I'm only going to use Arch Linux anyways. So it's just be kind of pointless keeping Fedora on the other hard drive. On the other hand, Windows can be useful for me because things that I can use Windows for, like for example, like my iPhone, if I want to sync music. iTunes work in Windows. I mean, I could use my Mac system, but I prefer to use Windows because I already have it all set up on my B-Link with Windows for my iPhone for my music. So I use Windows for that reason. It's a stupid reason, but I mean, that's just how iPhones work. And people's like, why don't you use an Android? Well, it's called personal preference. I like an iPhone. They just work good. It's a very fast phone. The processor is pretty good. I never had any problems with iPhones. To me, like, I don't really give a crap about mobile in general. I just think the reason why I use an iPhone is because it works good, and I like the software that it has, and it's a BSD. iOS is BSD system, and I like BSD. I think it's pretty solid, and it works good. Anyways, I own a lot of Android phones, and I mean, not like the most top tier Android phones, but they are pretty expensive. They're more expensive than iPhones. So I mean, if you want to get a really like fast, like the top of the line Samsung, it's a lot more expensive than an iPhone. You get like an iPhone 14. That's what I have. It's not the Plus, not the Pro. It's just the regular iPhone 14. I got that one because I like the size of it, 6.1 inch, and that's a perfect phone for me, man. Like it, I want to get the iPhone 15 because I like the new dynamic island thing. I just think the notch looks a little bit better than the iPhone 14 notch. But I'm gonna keep my iPhone 14 until I want to get another phone. But I'll probably get another one. But I'll probably wait till like iPhone 16, whatever. Because I'm still paying. What I do is like I get a tab with my ISP and I just pay so much every month until it's paid off, and then once it's paid off, I get another one. That's how I got all my iPhones. Like I pay through that. I could pay it off right now if I want to, but I probably just pay it off a little bit every month, and that's how I do it. I mean, I don't buy it up front. I mean, buying an iPhone is pretty expensive, especially in Canada. But anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about phones. I'm kind of tired, but yeah. So I'm back on Arch Linux. It doesn't mean I hate just because I'm not using Fedora does not mean I hate it. Okay, there's nothing wrong with Fedora. It didn't cause any problem. People's like, and like in my Discord server, like, why are you leaving Fedora? Like, what if Fedora did to you? Because people know when I leave a system, they're like, there's a reason, right? Like, I'm like, no, I just want to go back on Arch Linux. And I know saying a lot of things about Arch Linux, like they're pointing out like AUR. You know, I'm like, I still don't use AUR. I don't use it. And then people's like, if you don't use AUR, how do you got Kava? Well, I got the tarball, the AUR tarball of Kava, and I just basically install it manually with make package. So you can do that on. You don't need to do that. You can just do it manually on Arch Linux. I mean, anyways, I like the reason why I stick on Arch Linux because this is my system. I love Arch Linux. I always love Arch Linux. People that are in my Discord server know me from years ago, and the reason how like we became friends is because of my old YouTube channel, and I used to do a lot of videos on Arch Linux way back in the day and FreeBSD as well, and that's how people found me. And till this day, I'm still friends with some of these people, you know, in my group, and it's like it's pretty cool because I've been friends with these people for like over 10 years, you know, and but yeah, like it's like I always been a big fan of Arch Linux, and I'm also a big fan of FreeBSD and OpenBSD. These are like my three top favorite systems, and I like Gentoo as well, as you may notice. And I do like Fedora, but Fedora is more of like for developers, for enterprise people that like to make servers on their computer. I think it's a great system for like, you know, like enterprise IT stuff like that. I mean, yes, it could be good for like personal use as well, but the way I look at like a community user kind of like Linux system is Arch Linux, okay? And like my channel is called Homebrew. Like the whole point of Homebrew is basically using community like janky roll and release, you know, bleeding edge, cutting stuff, new technology of Linux, playing around with it, things breaking, things like, you know, it's a tinkering system. And Arch Linux is made for me. I like to tinker around. I like Arch Linux. I think it's a great system. It always worked good for me. I know a system pretty good. I know like everything about it. You know, I know how to use Arch Linux really good. And it is my favorite system of all systems out there. I always like Arch Linux. And I can complain about Arch Linux and say a lot of crap about it, but at the end of the day, I love Arch Linux. Okay, I love Fedora too. I think Fedora is a great system, but I'm a person that likes to test out Fedora. Fedora is like my favorite distribution to test out. Like when before they're gonna have a release, I like to test it out and just basically give you my thoughts on it. It like let people know what's like if I have problems with it. I give my like my issues. I put them in videos and I talk about it. I discuss about the pros and cons of what I get with the testing, and also I like to give my opinion and review on the system itself. But once it gets released, I'm like, okay, the system's good. It's good to go. It's working good, and it's time to go back on Arch Linux. But I always test out Fedora. That's how I always use. Like back in the day, I used to use Fedora as my main system. Like in the early 2000s, like when Fedora first came out. But like after a while, I just kind of just use Fedora. I always test out their new release all the time before they become a release, and that's what I've done every year, and I still do that till this day. Been doing it in every single release. I test it out for a little bit, and like a lot of times I test it out in virtual machines. I never actually put in my host for a long time. It does work good. I think Fedora is a really good system, but I'm just a lot more happy with Arch Linux. I didn't have to put it on my B-Link, but I'm just like, I'm gonna go all Arch Linux. Why not? And not ditch a hop. If I'm gonna be installing VirtualBox, and basically I haven't installed it yet. That's one application I forgot to install, to be honest. And yeah, I'm gonna install VirtualBox and just basically test out systems on there. I really want to play around with the Atomic desktops by Fedora, like Silverblue and the KDE Silverblue, or I don't know what it's called, Atomic desktop. Basically, immutable systems. This seems pretty interesting. What it is like your root is basically kind of like locked down, and the only thing you can like copy on it is your home directory and your etc, and the rest is like a read-only kind of. Like basically your root access is basically read-only, and it's just very very secure in that regard. It's a very stable, secure system, and it seems pretty interesting. Like Atomic, like even like the RPM OS tree seems like a pretty cool layer. Kind of like it's a package manager, but it installs packages in layers, kind of like a sandbox in a way. Kind of like how zones work or jail on FreeBSD. It's pretty interesting actually. It makes snapshots. It's a pretty cool type of Fedora system. I like this kind of Fedora a lot actually. I'm gonna be testing some of that out in the virtual machine, but I wanted to put Arch Linux as my main host, my main system, because Arch Linux works really good. It has a lot of tools. Like I don't need to use AUR because it pretty much all like Pacman has all the software that I use. I don't need to like I actually like with Arch Installer, like it just shoots your system when it's done setting up the system. It asks you if you want to shoot your system, and I put yes, and I install all my applications. So when I restart the computer, I have pretty much all my software that I need for my system. I built my system up, and that's what I really like about Arch Linux, like with their installer, like. Compared to Fedora, like Fedora is kind of like an OEM bare bones system, which is pretty cool too. Don't get me wrong, but I like Arch Linux is designed. It's just a system for me because the way it works, how you can install it, the options it gives you, I like it. I just think it's a really good system. I could rant about this all day, but. Yeah, so I'm using Arch Linux, and I'm really happy with it. And I'll be doing some videos on the Atomic Fedora stuff. I'll download a bunch of ISOs and play around with them and study it, so I can give it a proper review and my opinion on it. So yeah, I'll most likely probably do that on my day off. I was planning to set up Arch Linux on my day off, but I already done it today, so I spent the whole morning after work setting up my system. So yeah, I'll be playing around with some. I'll probably get Silverblue. There, I forgot what the KDE version called. It's like Silverblue, but it's a KDE version of it. And there's a bunch of other ones. They got Sway, Bungie. Well, they're, I call them, it's mainly called Atomic Desktop. And I'll give a more like brief review, but you guys can always check it out on Fedora website, and just type Atomic Desktop or Atomic Fedora or Silverblue, and they'll have a lot of information about stuff like that. Like if you guys are interested, check it out. But yeah, it seems pretty cool. I don't know. I'm quite interested in it, but I don't want to put it on the host. I want to just basically try it in a virtual machine. But it seems like a system that will never break, man. It'll just it's hard to explain, but it'll never break because what it does is that it has different layers and snapshots, whatever, and if something is broken or a package broken, it'll basically make your system always immutable. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain, but it always will keep it stable. You know what I mean? No matter what. If it has to roll back to the previous snapshot, it'll roll back to the previous snapshot. The system will always make sure that it's on stable packages and nothing's broken, and like nothing can like break the system. Like you can't even break it yourself because of the sort of like isolation, like root isolation to your system, and a lot of the packages you install on there besides RPM-OS tree, because these are packages but they're like kind of like confined in a space, like in a layer space, like Sandbox, and kind of like how Flatpak works. And you can also use Flatpak as well to install applications. They kind of recommend you to install a lot of your applications through Flatpak, but you could also use RPM OS tree as well to install applications. I think I'm not 100% sure there, but I'm not a professional. I don't really know all about that, but I really want to learn it. And that's basically what I'm gonna be doing on my days off, is playing around with these Atomic systems by Fedora. And just because I use Arch Linux as my host does not mean that I'm not gonna play around with Fedora, because I still like Fedora. I want to use Fedora in a virtual machine instead of having it on my host. I want it in the virtual machine instead, because I think Arch Linux is probably a lot better for me as a host system, because it's basically my system. I love Arch Linux. I'm sure all the people that use Arch Linux and like are kind of like, why is he using Fedora? Well, you're probably happy now. I'm back on Arch again. I'm staying on Arch though. I always say I'm going to stay on the system, and I always leave a system, right? But I actually always use Arch Linux, to be honest. I always do this. I always take a vacation from Arch. I leave Arch and I put it back on. Arch is basically my main system. It'll always be my favorite system. So, but this time around, I'm not gonna ditch or hop. I'm gonna just stick with Arch Linux and stay on it. That's it, and just try out distributions in a virtual machine, so that way I don't have to set up a system all the time, because it takes a lot of time to set up all this stuff. Like reinstall everything. I like doing it, but it just takes it's time consuming, but I like doing it, because if I didn't like doing it, I wouldn't do it, right? Well, anyways, guys, once again, I know I'm just rambling. Thanks for the watch. Have a good one, guys. Cheers.